Exiled east of Eden, what Cain's story reveals about God's mercy. A shadow beyond the gates. The ground was still trembling when Cain realized what he had done. The air tasted of metal. The silence clung to him like smoke after a fire. In the dirt beneath his feet lay the body of his brother. The first man ever to die. The first murder in the history of the world. And as the weight of that reality settled over him, something even more terrifying followed. The unmistakable sense that he was now completely alone. Welcome to Faith and Facts, where we explore the ancient world with clarity, depth, and respect for both belief and inquiry. If you find value in these explorations, consider subscribing as we journey further into the world behind the text. Cain's story is often remembered only for its violence. Yet beneath the tragedy lies something far more unexpected. Judgment, yes, but also mercy, protection, even grace. And when we follow Cain east of Eden, we discover a portrait of God that is far more complex, far more compassionate, and far more humanly relatable than many imagine. This is the story of the world's first exile, and the unexpected hope that followed him into the unknown. The cry of the ground, Cain's feet barely moved as he lifted his eyes from the earth. The voice of God had cut through him like a cold wind. "Where is Abel, your brother?" And Cain's famous reply, "Am I my brother's keeper?" was not defiance born of strength, but the desperate sarcasm of a man already drowning in guilt. The narrative at this moment slows, almost freezes, forcing us to feel the tension between justice and compassion. Ancient listeners would have understood the gravity instantly. In the ancient Near East, blood cried out from the ground, not as a metaphor, but as a legal claim. In cultures from Mesopotamia to Canaan, spilled blood demanded the life of the murderer. Justice was not optional, it was sacred. So when God responds, "Your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground," the original audience would have expected a single outcome: death. But what happens next shocked them, and still shocks us today. God does not kill Cain. Instead, he places judgment in a form that is both severe and strangely protective. Cain would no longer draw life from the soil, no longer harvest the security he once knew. The earth itself would resist him, a mirror of his own violent act. Yet even in this judgment, something remarkable emerges. God speaks to Cain, not as an executioner, but as a father grieving the choices of his child. And just when Cain fears the consequences will consume him, a new tension enters the story. One that reveals the heart of God in a way easy to overlook. The mark of protection. Cain's voice cracks as he speaks. "My punishment is greater than I can bear." This line is more than despair. It is anthropology. In the ancient world, survival depended on one's tribe. To be cast out from family, land, and community was not merely lonely. It was lethal. Without a kin group, a man had no legal protection, no shelter, no reputation. Cain was facing not a life sentence, but a death sentence delivered by the world's harsh realities. Cain fears what any ancient would fear: vengeance. If the first family knew he had killed Abel, others might eventually know as well. Blood feuds were part of life. Cycles of revenge fueled entire clan histories. Yet God does something unprecedented. He does not simply respond. He intervenes. Not so. Anyone who kills Cain will suffer vengeance sevenfold. And then the text tells us. God places a mark on Cain. For centuries, this mark has been misunderstood, misused, or twisted into ideas the text never supports. But in the ancient world, a mark could signify protection, not shame. It functioned like a seal, a divine proclamation that Cain belonged to God's jurisdiction. No human judge, no avenger of blood. No wandering clan could lay a hand on him. Archaeology and comparative anthropology give us striking parallels. In Mesopotamian law tablets, symbols were placed on protected persons to shield them from retaliation. In Hittite records, kings marked fugitives to prevent their execution. The idea of a divine protective sign would have communicated a powerful truth. Cain is judged, but not abandoned. This moment dismantles the idea of a God quick to destroy and slow to forgive. Instead, we see a God who upholds justice and yet simultaneously limits the violence that justice might unleash. It is a moment that whispers something profound. Mercy does not erase consequences, but it can transform them. If reflections like this help you rethink familiar stories, feel free to like the video. Genuinely helps more people find this kind of content. East of Eden. The text tells us Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and settled in the land of Nod, east of Eden. The word Nod means wandering. Yet the very next sentence tells us Cain builds something that no wanderer ever builds: a city. This tension invites us into the complexity of early human civilization. Historically, the movement eastward echoes a theme repeated throughout the ancient Near East. Moving east symbolized both distance and beginning. Even in Mesopotamian epics, heroes journey east to start new lives, often after catastrophic mistakes. Cain's building of a city is not a contradiction. It is a declaration. Judgment has changed him, but it has not erased his creativity or his future. The first city in human history, according to Genesis, is founded not by a hero, but by a broken man living under divine protection. This is unexpected. But it reveals something essential about the biblical worldview. Human progress, settlements, culture, craftsmanship can emerge even from wounded people. Archaeology tells us the earliest urban settlements in the Fertile Crescent were simple. Clusters of homes, shared granaries, communal wells. The idea that a solitary family might establish such a place aligns with what we know. Early cities were not massive metropolises, they were extended households fortified for security. Cain names the city after his son Enoch. This act speaks volumes. In the wake of judgment, Cain invests in legacy rather than revenge, in building rather than destroying. The text subtly shifts our focus from his crime to the surprising tenderness of a man trying to give his child a future. And in this unexpected quietness, this attempt to rebuild, mercy again becomes the center of the story. The long echo of mercy. As Cain's descendants are listed, the narrative becomes almost musical, rhythmical. Like the echo of generations rising out of exile, we meet shepherds, musicians, metalworkers, pioneers of culture. Whether one approaches the text historically or literarily, the message is unmistakable. Civilization emerges not from the soil of Eden, but from the soil of human brokenness, shaped by divine grace. This is a profound theological statement. God does not wait for perfect people to move history forward. He works with what humanity is, not what it should have been. The family line that emerges from Cain becomes a testament to what restoration looks like when judgment does not have the final word. Even the darker figures like Lamech, who boasts of violence, play their role as mirrors. They show what happens when human woundedness is embraced without the tempering influence of divine compassion. Violence multiplied, pride blossomed, vengeance spiraled. Yet the narrative refuses to end there. It ends instead with a new birth, Seth. A reminder that the story of humanity will always have another sunrise after the darkest night. But even as Adam and Eve embrace this new promise, Cain's life remains part of the tapestry. He is not erased, not rewritten, not quietly removed from the record. His story stands because it reveals something generations needed to understand. Judgment may fall, but mercy follows close behind. The ancient audience would have felt the shock of this. In their world, divine judgment was often final. Yet here stands a God who judges, but also shields, who disciplines, but also protects, who allows consequences, but refuses to abandon. It is the mercy that travels with Cain that becomes the heart of the story, a God who stays. Cain's journey from garden soil to distant city becomes a lens through which we see a truth as relevant today as it was at the dawn of civilization. We are more than our failures, more than the worst moments we cannot take back. The God of Genesis is not a God eager to destroy the broken, but a God who accompanies them. East of Eden, into exile, into uncertainty. Cain feared he would be forgotten, hunted, erased. Instead, he was remembered, protected, allowed to build. And in that quiet act of building a city, the narrative invites us to reconsider the character of God. Perhaps judgment is not God's final word. Perhaps mercy is not an afterthought, but a defining feature of the divine heart. Cain, the world's first exile, becomes the world's first example of grace after catastrophe. And maybe that is why his story endures. Not because of the tragedy, but because of what followed. Thank you for exploring this ancient journey with us. If this episode helped you see the story in a new light, consider liking, subscribing, and sharing your own reflections in the comments. Your engagement helps this community grow and allows us to keep uncovering the faith and facts behind the world's oldest stories. Until next time, keep seeking, keep learning, and keep exploring the world behind the text.